Hey everyone, it's Joyel and welcome back to my channel. So last year I promised that for Halloween I would try and tell some spooky ghost stories, my own personal spooky ghost stories. So that's what I'm doing this year. But of course, before we get started, please don't forget to click that subscribe button down below. And if you're the owner of a business, especially a black-owned business, please send me an email at SharmaineJoyel@gmail.com or go ahead and fill out the Google form in the link down below. But let's get started. I'm sitting in our guest bedroom right now, using nothing but my phone light. So I'm gonna try and drop it down below here to kind of give a spooky atmosphere. I tried to dress up like Goofy a little bit, but I probably should have painted my nose black, but it is what it is. We're not here for a costume contest, we're here for spooky stories, right? But I have a couple ghost stories that I would like to share with you, some personal ghost stories, just weird things that have kind of happened to me throughout my life. I never really believed in ghosts, even after all these things that have happened to me. I've never really believed in ghosts per se. I think sometimes it's just a mind trick. I still kind of believe that, but I've still had some weird things happen to me. So I'll start with the story of, to this day, probably the most shocking thing that has happened to me that I still cannot explain. My mom cannot explain either, so this wasn't just me experiencing this. When I was still living with my parents, I was probably 17 or 18 years old. This is right after my niece had just been born, and my sister was taking her daughter to go visit the baby's father. My sister at the time, because she had a child, also had this really big, very comfortable bed, and for whatever reason, that day I decided that I would like to take a nap in my sister's bed for whatever reason. I don't even remember, to be completely honest with you. So I went in there, it's about middle of the afternoon. I go to lay down and I hear some rustling going around in her bedroom, specifically under the baby's like bassinet. I didn't think anything of it because we've always had a lot of pets. Mainly we've always had a lot of cats, and I was just like, oh, it's probably Angel. She likes to sleep under the baby's bed sometimes. So I got up and I check under the baby's bed. No cat. So I'm like, interesting, okay. I go to lay back down, didn't think anything of it. Nothing's really sending any alarms going off, right? So I lay down and I'm getting ready and I'm like starting to doze off when all of a sudden I have this hand just smacks me flat in the middle of my back, like super hard. I'm laying on my side and something just slaps the daylights out of me. Just literally like a hand just came crashing down on my back, like felt the slap, and it jolted me right up. I was like, what? So I'm looking around, and at this point I'm freaked out. I'm like, is my sister pulling a prank on me? I look under her bed, I look in the closet, and granted, it's just me and my mom home. So I'm panicking, and I'm like, what the? So I jump out of the bed, and I run to my mom's room, and I'm like, and I explained to her what just happened, that, you know, I was laying down, and something just smacked me right in the middle of my back. So I asked her, I was like, can you look at my back? So I pull up my shirt, and lo and behold, there's a pink hand mark on the middle of my back, right where I said I got smacked. My mom was like, that's weird. I can't explain it to this day. I thought maybe it was like, honestly, before I even asked my mom about, you know, before I asked her to look at my back, I thought maybe, you know, I was drowsing off. Maybe I was getting ready to go into dreamland or something, but the fact that there was actually a handprint on my back, to this day, that's honestly the most shocking thing that's ever happened to me. Like anything that I would consider paranormal, that's probably like a level 10 for me, that something actually put hands on me. And you're probably like, why are you still skeptical? Because I don't know. It's like I can't wrap my brain around the fact that something could actually do that to me, and that there was some kind of evidence. Like even me and my mom are still just like, we still don't really believe it. It's, I don't know, it's just, that was probably one of the most shocking, or probably the most shocking thing. But it is not the only thing that has happened to me. I do remember as being very young, when we lived up in Washington State, I shared a room with my sister for many, many, many years. I'm sure a lot of siblings have shared rooms when they were kids, but I do remember as a kid, in the middle of the night, seeing a full body, like, shadow person always standing in the doorway of my bedroom. But because I was so young, I also tend to write this one off as well, because it's like, I was a kid, maybe I was dreaming. I would pinch myself to be like, okay, I'm not dreaming, but I was never actually scared of them. It was just kind of like, oh, I see you. Hey, and they never got close to me. And it never looked like a man or woman. It never had a face. It just kind of looked like, just like the outline. You know how like a very basic outline of like a human being shape, but it was always pretty tall and it was always solid black. I remember it was always darker than its surroundings, so it stood out to me, but it never looked like 3D or anything. It just looked like a shadow person, I guess is what they call it. But as a kid, I never was actually fearful of it. I never felt scared of it. I never got any sort of like anxiety, fight or flight response from it. But I do remember seeing it a handful of times, but nothing ever enough to even mention it to. I don't think I ever mentioned it to my parents because it never scared me. I was just kind of like, okay, hey, what's up? And then I would just turn around and go to sleep. And it never sent any alarms off for me. Another very weird experience that I don't really have much of an explanation for. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me, but I was visiting my friend Julia up in Colorado. I want to say it was probably like 19 or 20 years old when this one happened. But I was visiting my friend Julia, and we were taking like a little bit of a road trip. We were driving up to one of the national parks when we stopped to fill the gas up in the car. And I remember kind of looking up into the distance and recognizing this building that was like obviously pretty far away, but I could very clearly tell that there was a huge building up on this hill, and I recognized it, and I kept racking my brain, and I asked her, I was like, do you know what that building is? And she was like, no, I don't recognize it. And then it clicked to me, I was like, that looks like the Stanley Hotel. So I started doing a quick Google search, and lo and behold, the building that I was looking at in the distance happened to be the Stanley Hotel. So I told her, I was like, I don't know if you know about this, but the Stanley Hotel was the inspiration for Stephen King's book and movie, The Shining. I was like, no way. So I immediately, because I watch ghost shows, paranormal shows, and that's where I recognized it from. So I told her, I was like, should we go up there? And she was like, heck yeah. So she was like, gung-ho. Me and her are that's probably why we're best friends. We do have a lot of similarities, and like we're both like very adventurous. So we were both like, yeah, let's go at least go check it out, right? It's still daytime. It's not like we're going up there in the middle of the night. So we drive up there, we park, and it was honestly a very beautiful hotel. It was a very beautiful historic building. So we go into the lobby and we're kind of just looking around. We decided to go ahead and sneak up the stairs. So there's a sign that literally says, only guests allowed or those that are on tours. But while no one was looking, we snuck up the big staircase so that we could go and kind of walk down the hallways and kind of investigate a little bit. First off, the hallways in this place were very confusing and kind of daunting. They just seem like they twist and go on forever, personally. So that was a little like, oh, interesting. But still at this point, not freaked out, just more intrigued more than anything. We ended up finding a tour group that was kind of going around and kind of like joined in the back. The tour guide eventually took the group to this room. I think it was called like the captain's room or something like that. Basically, captain of some sort, a man, had stayed in that room and apparently was known to be kind of a very flirtatious man in his lifetime, and apparently was now haunting that room and was also very flirtatious. And as the tour guide had explained, would often touch women by, pinching their bums or, just some form of contact, right? So I'm like basically zoning out at this point. I'm just kind of like checking out the room, and I'm backed up against a dresser that's in the room because we're in the back of this group. And this tour guide is continuing on with the history of this bedroom and things like that. I felt something, I'm not even joking. I'm giggling now because I still don't believe it, but I legitimately felt someone pinch my butt. So I turned to Julia and I kind of like shoved her. I was like, don't do that. And she was like, don't do what? Like she looked offended that I had like kind of, came at her. And she was like, don't do what? And I was like, don't mess with me. You don't need to pinch my butt. And she's like, I didn't. And I realized Julia's standing more in front of me. And so I'm confused because my whole back is up against this dresser, right? And it's a pinch right on my left upper bum cheek. And then it happened again. So I beelined right out of the room, and the whole group of people were like, "Oh, what's going on?" And I was like, "Nope, nope, 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 nope." I was completely freaked out at that point. I was like, something is touching me, and it pinched me hard, and I was just more baffled. I tried not to like think about it too much because I was like, this could be your mind easily playing tricks on you, but it literally felt like somebody was pinching my bum. It happened twice. 2 times in a row. And the fact that I was backed up against a dresser and there was nobody on either side of me, I was in the very back of this group. And I would think that, you know, if it was the dresser, maybe my pants would have gotten caught, or maybe it would have just been like, you know, a piece of wood or something. But it was like my skin had been pinched. So, yeah, that was a very weird experience, and I was kind of shocked that had happened so quickly that I feel like my brain just can't even process that would have happened like that. I can't explain that one because I was up against a piece of furniture, so there was no way that somebody could have reached around and pinched me because I was in the very back. There were people in front of me. Yeah, that was my weird experience at the Stanley Hotel. So if you need any sort of evidence that it might be haunted, then there you go. This story concerns not me, but my dad. I'm trying to remember exactly how this story goes. I don't remember. I think my sister told me about it, but apparently my dad had been home by himself and was on the computer. We had like a spare computer chair, and it's all tile in this room. You know, when something scoots, you can hear it. It's not like carpet, right? But he explains that he was on the computer when he turns around and sees this like spare computer chair that we had kind of leaning up against a wall. It slid and turned towards him. And apparently he screamed and was just so freaked out because he was like, I don't know how that chair would have slid like that. It's not like the floor was tilted or angled, and the fact that was the only thing that moved and that it completely rotated towards him had him freaked out. He still can't explain it to this day. Still just like something weird. And I'm telling you, my parents still live in the same house, by the way. They still live in this same house. That was kind of weird. And I remember me and my sister thinking like, this house is totally haunted after that. We've had quite a few experiences in my parents' house. I used to foster dogs and puppies for about 4 years. I worked with a rescue group and we used to foster puppies. And I remember one night in the living room, and I had my dog Frankie, our dog Rella, and then we had this little foster dog. I can't remember her name, but we had this little foster puppy with us at the time, and the dogs were all sleeping on the spare couch across from me. So we had like one couch here, and then there was like a coffee table. And I was watching TV, no lights on, just in the dark, right? When all 3 dogs sit up and they look out a window that's pointing at our backyard. I wasn't concerned. We have lots of cats in our house. We also had a lot of cats in the neighborhood, so I'm assuming there's probably a cat outside the window. But they are just staring intently, all 3 of them. And I realized that they're not really looking out the window. They're looking at the far corner by the window. And all 3 dogs, you could see the hair starts to stand up on their necks. So I'm like, what is going on? So I get up and I just go towards that window. I turn on the patio light. There's no cats. None of our cats are over there. So I turn the patio light off and I come sit down. And this whole time, they haven't taken their eye off the corner of the living room. So I'm like, okay. Well, Frankie starts to do a really, really low growl. At this point, I'm like, okay, now I'm a little concerned. I'm just kind of like looking back and forth. I'm looking at the dog and I'm looking at the corner and I'm looking at the dogs and then I'm looking at the corner trying to be like, what are they seeing? All of a sudden, the puppy yelps and jumps off the couch and runs down the hallway with her tail between her legs, and then both Frankie and Rella did the exact same thing. They just took off down the hallway like terrified. I'm like, okay, that's really weird. And they wouldn't come back in the living room. They ran out to the front of the house, to like the front room of the house, and just were completely terrified. Hair is standing up on their backs, their tails are tucked under, and I'm just like, that was interesting. Don't have an explanation for that either. The fact that all 3 of them were had all their attention on the corner of this room and then yelp and run off with tails between their legs. I'd never seen that happen before. I'd never seen my dogs be scared like that. Ever, ever, ever. Let alone a puppy go yelping down the hallway like she'd been smacked or something. An incident happened, oddly enough, on Thanksgiving Day. Again, still living with my parents, still at my parents' house. This incident, I feel like, really explains a lot of the weird things that have happened in my parents' house. But my mom had explained that one year for Thanksgiving, I think I was like in my room where I was like getting ready to like leave for a friend's house. I don't remember being home for this like at all. But my mom said that on Thanksgiving Day, this couple had came and knocked on our front door. It was like an older couple, and explained to my mom that they had actually used to live, at that house. And this house had been completely like remodeled and I think had been added on to before my parents bought the house. But anyway, this older couple came and knocked on the door, explained that they had used to live there and were hoping to kind of like take a look at the house, after having moved away years and years and years ago. So my mom was like, yeah, sure, took them on a tour of the house, which honestly, in this day and age, I don't think I would do. I'd be like, that's cool, but like, I don't want you in my house. Anyway, so my mom is taking them on a tour and they're kind of explaining, oh yeah, our daughter's room used to be here, this house used to be shaped like this, this used to be whatever room here. And then they explain that they had a son who had passed away. Now, they never really explained if he had died in the house or had died away from the house, in another location, but they had a son that had passed away. And when my mom told me this, I was like, ding, 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 ding. If there's any explanation for why weird stuff has happened in this house, it's probably because somebody died in it, or somebody was really attached to this house, and it was probably their son. Now, my sister and I had nicknamed this ghost Dan the ghost. We don't know if it's a female or a guy. It's just like the fact that these people had explained that their son had died in this house. We just nicknamed him Dan. We don't know his actual name. But we've had things where, so my bedroom actually had a bathroom attached to it. But my dog Frankie, we would have days where we could not find him. And all of a sudden I would open my bathroom door and he'd be shut in there in the dark, just curled up in a ball. He never made a single noise, but he would just be curled up in my bathroom, just in the dark, door shut. Like, how did you lock yourself in the bathroom? Like, just weird stuff. This last story that involves my parents' house is probably the one incident where multiple family members were involved or saw or heard what was kind of going on. But at this time, we had a high school friend living with us, and he was staying in like one of the spare bedrooms that we had that was across the hall from mine. He was dating a girl at the time, and that night had said that he was going to go over to her house, stay with her. It's nighttime, I'm in my room, my parents are in their room, everyone was asleep but me, right? I'm just up dinking around on my laptop, right? And I hear what sounds like our coffee maker or something was being dragged across our countertop. And I'm thinking, probably one of our cats jumped up on the counter, rubbing around on stuff they shouldn't be, right? So I'm not really paying attention, but it just sounds like our coffee maker, something is just being dragged across the countertops. So I'm like, okay, that's weird. But I'm a little freaked out, didn't really bother to look. But then I hear what sounds like the guest bedroom door literally open and then shut. So I'm like, oh, did this friend come home? I open my door. I don't see a light on under the guest bedroom door. So I knock, just lightly. No answer. I was like, okay, maybe he went to sleep. So I text him. I'm like, hey, did you come home? I know you're supposed to be with your girlfriend. He's like, no, I've been here the whole time. So I call him, and I hear his girlfriend in the background. They probably have a couple people over. I'm like, I heard your door open and close. Did you happen to come home or anything? And he was like, no, I've been here the whole time. So I'm like, okay, good night, and hang up the phone. At this point, I'm freaked out, right? So I open my door and I go back out in the hallway, and I look to my right and I notice that our dog Rella is just standing very still in the hallway, looking towards the guest bedroom and towards the kitchen. And I'm like, what the? I'm like, hey, Rilla. You know, I'm calling her like, hey, girl. And she's not looking at me. She's just staring dead straight ahead, hair standing up on her back. And then she starts letting out a little growl. And where she was standing in the hallway in front of my sister's door. So my sister opens the door and she's like, what's going on? And then my mom comes down the hallway and she was like, is Major home? Like, what the? And then she looks down at Rella like, what's wrong with the dog? Everyone's confused at this point. And I'm like, I called Major. He said he wasn't home. But everyone heard the door open. Everyone heard the door open and close. And I explained that I had heard what sounded like something was being scraped across the countertop. I go out into the counter. Nothing has moved. Nothing has moved. Rella is just like, we're petting her, trying to get her to just mellow out. And she's just not having it. She was completely freaked out, and then she just backs back down the hallway into my parents' room. Me, my mom, my sister were like, what was that all about? Like, everyone heard, because my sister's room is right next to the guest bedroom, and then mine is across the hallway. Everybody heard the door open and close. Don't have an explanation for that. My parents have also, since then, have also had a preacher come throughout the house and bless the house. My parents have, like, a few crosses hung up, and haven't really had any weird activity happen since then. So I'm like, cool, you had an exorcism done on the house. But I told them that I think I had suggested that maybe they should have like some sort of a blessing done on the house, and they did, and since then no one's had nothing weird has happened at the house since then. My parents and my sister, you know, me having moved back in once or twice there, I've never had anything weird happened since then in the house, since my parents had the blessing done. My last ghost or paranormal story actually takes place at the house we lived in before this one. We were renting a home. This has happened to me twice. I don't know what to believe, because when this happened, the dogs didn't react, or they were outside and they never came inside and acted weird. So I totally believe dogs have a sixth sense, because all the times that I've had weird things happen in my parents' house, my dogs were pretty much involved, right? I was in the kitchen, my husband, then fiance, he was in his office working, my stepson was in his bedroom, you know, playing on his Xbox or whatever, and I was in the kitchen cooking dinner. The way the kitchen is set up, so like if I'm sitting here at the stove, on my left side is the corner wraps around like an L, and then it kind of overlooks, like, it has like a little countertop above the sink, and then you can look out to the living room, right? So I'm cooking, and I see in like my peripheral vision, what looks like a boy about Micah's age, but I specifically remember having a white t-shirt. I see him kind of walk by. You know, I don't think anything of it. I thinking it's my stepson, Micah. But I see what looks like a boy in a white shirt, you know, kind of walk by that area. Don't think anything of it. I'm just thinking it's my stepson, Micah, probably getting ready to round the corner and come into the kitchen. So I'm cooking, and I notice he's not. No one's coming into the kitchen. So I look, and I'm looking in the living room thinking, okay, maybe he went to go sit on the couch. So I look over. I don't see anybody out there. I take a break real quick, and I go around and I go into his bedroom, and he's sitting there just playing on his Xbox, and he's not wearing a white shirt, he's wearing a red shirt. So at this moment I'm like, okay. So I don't say anything. That was weird. A couple months later, same thing happens. I'm in the kitchen, and I see what looks like a boy walk right by the opening of the, you know, where past that same opening, except this time I see a blue shirt. I'm thinking it's Micah. So I don't say anything. A couple minutes go by, I notice no one's walked to the kitchen. I look, nobody's in the living room. I'm like, okay, maybe he's hiding behind the wall and he's trying to scare me, because he likes to do that sometimes. So I walk around. There's no one there. There's literally nobody there. He's in his bedroom playing a game, and he's not wearing a blue shirt. No explanation for that. That still has me completely mind blown. I'm like, how did I completely see somebody walk by me and there's nobody there? Yeah, I have no clue. I don't know, man. You would think that after having that many experiences, I would for sure be like, I believe in ghosts, I believe in the paranormal. But for some reason, my brain is still so doubtful. It's like, I feel like maybe some like straight up poltergeist level activity would need to happen for me to be like, that okay, I believe. I don't know, you guys. I have zero explanation for all the weird things that have happened to me. A part of me still thinks maybe my mind has just been playing tricks on me. But I have definitely had a couple of weird occurrences. A couple of weird experiences. I don't know. You'd think being slapped on the back and pinched on the bum would solidify any of that. I've never like looked dead on and like really like seen anything. I've never seen anything like slide across like in front of me or move right in front of me. It's always been like peripheral vision or just like kind of feeling something or hearing things move. But even to this day, I don't know what to believe. I've always thought it would be cool to kind of start like an Explorer channel. I've seen Ghost Brothers, which is probably the only like African American group of ghost hunters that I've come across, and I always thought it'd be interesting to like start like maybe a female group of like ghost hunters. But at the same time, I also like, I don't believe in like messing with like the occult or like really messing with that kind of stuff. As skeptical as I am, you could not pay me to mess with a Ouija board. You could not pay me to mess around with anything considered demonic. If you have any ghost stories, please share them down below. I hope you found my stories intriguing or interesting. Please be safe this Halloween. Please enjoy your Halloween. But again, please don't forget to click that subscribe button down below. Keep blueing, and I'll see you guys in my next video.